I think it has changed. I think pop success now is almost like, it's almost like I know people say formula, but that's not even, it's like a math problem. You know, it's like we repeat this amount of times, we get this melody that, you know, we're going to repeat this amount of times. That's my thing with the Black Eyed Peas, is that it's brainwashing. You know, I can't get the song out of my head. That doesn't mean that it's good. If you think about pop music in the 70s, one-hit wonders, you know, or bands like the Bee Gees, or, you know, Paul McCartney and Wings, I'm a big fan of, more so than the Beatles. You know, the 70s music was just, you know, even if it was like the rock songs that made it, you know, Mississippi Queen or something like that, or Ramblin' Man by the Allman Brothers, like a pop hit, you know, in the 70s. Like, all the different forms of music in the 70s, and the hits in the 70s were pretty good songs. Even in the 60s, when there was a lot of good pop music, like Motown and stuff like that, there were specific songwriters that did that. But that was their job, and they were writing great songs. But I think the thing wasn't, it was to sell records, and these days it's to sell, you know, cars, and it's more like, we're going to have success if we get it on a Lexus commercial with this. We're going to have success if we get it on some commercial. So they're writing for commercials. It's like jingles. Jingles were always around, and they were always called jingles, like, you know, for a reason. A jingle was this melody that, or, you know, this song that sounded like something, you know, that, you know, was there to get in your head so you can remember and buy something.
Right.
Now people are writing jingles as that's their songs.
I'm not sure there ever was a formula, because it seems like everybody achieved pop success in a different way. And there were often a lot of rules broken. You know, the Beatles, for example, you know, they connected with their manager, Brian Epstein, who, you know, had the idea to make them presentable and give them their look.
Right.
And they had the right connections. They got the records in the stores. They got the records on the radio. But it was, you know, it was a way of doing things that worked at that time. Nobody's been able to repeat that. And the Rolling Stones were basically a backup band for this piano player, Ian Stewart.
Right. And
then gradually, you know, as Mick and Keith started writing songs, they always kept Ian Stewart as a collaborator. But they realized, you know, it looks right with this other group of 5 guys. And it just, you know, it kind of came together as it did. Led Zeppelin was Jimmy Page trying to do a new version of the Yardbirds. And he was a studio guitar player. And, you know, and they were coming off of this era where, you know, it was all about singles. The Beatles and the Stones had started releasing albums, but it was still, you know, there were still a lot of singles in the pop world. And Led Zeppelin, along with Pink Floyd and some others, they made it about the album.
Right.
And then they reached this whole astronomical level of success that was unheard of. And, you know, you just never know. I mean, I don't think the Grateful Dead ever had a single. I don't even think they had high album sales ever. I think it was, you know, just about...
That's a whole different...
I think Truckin' was the only single they ever had.
Right, so there's always... I think there's always exceptions. And then, you know, you get into the 70s when you had pop stars. Like, you know, one example might be James Taylor. And it really wasn't image-based at all. You know, it was really about the music. And it only became image-based really in the 80s. So then they changed it. You know, you had to have this image, you had to have a video. Yeah, now it's very strange. Especially, you know, since you're asking about pop starting.
Yeah.
I mean, the formula is to go on reality TV, reality talent shows.
Bizarre.
It is really bizarre. It is really, really strange. But that's sort of the formula how you become a pop star. Yeah. And it's not always working, too. Like, I don't know who won American Idol last season.
Yeah.
I can't name them. A lot of people, you know what I mean? So I think that's starting to change. And I just think we're sort of in this period of a lot of fluctuation in the music world, and it's changed. Whatever the formula was, it's not there anymore. And you're still gonna have pop stars occasionally, but Lady Gaga, she wasn't on a TV show or anything. But it's very unpredictable.
I think there's a formula if that's the way you want to go, you know? And I think it's fine. I think if it was as simple as there was a simple, this is the formula, I think a lot of people have made the mistake of thinking that it's that simple and found out the hard way that it isn't.
Right.
I often do tell people that, like, I've been lucky enough to work on, I've put out instrumental jazz records of sorts. I've had a funky horn section band. I've had Fish. I played with the New York Philharmonic and written long form orchestra piece type things. And I always tell everyone that if the hardest thing to do is to write a pop hit, guarantee, and because everybody's like, oh, that's so simple, it's so easy, and then I would say, well, then you do it. You think it's so easy?
That's interesting.
All the people who have had them and then thought they'd just write another one have found that out.
The thing.
That is something really intangible about great pop music. I love it. I'm fascinated by it's just so beyond the control of. I know there are people who have had periods where they could do it a lot. Obviously the Beatles, or maybe like Carole King when she was writing hits in the 60s. But then they can't anymore.
Right. And
that's what's so weird. Even the best of them, even the best.
There's a period.
Paul McCartney cannot write a pop hit right now. Neither can David Bowie. And he's not gone. It's not like he made some kind of conscious choice, oh, I'm not going to be that guy anymore. It just went away. There's this period that happens that there's this tipping point between sort of like a cynical, young, naive point of view that seems to be the cutting edge of where that magic thing happens. That's what it is, I think. I think that's why so many people have, it's like this magic tipping point, where, and why it's connected to youth so much is that it's like, this just like this naive belief in, cynical optimism or something like that. You know what I mean? And then it tips over into people kind of trying to get it back. And
then when you're getting it back, it's not happening.
And then of course it's horrible.